sí hay una buena participación de la presidenta y él, creemos que sí se puede lograr algo, pero ella está negando rotundamente que entre Estados Unidos a México y que se lleve a los cárteles. Y en otra manera, nosotras no veríamos, la verdad, yo no estaría de acuerdo en mi persona, yo voy a hablar por mí ahora, porque si se llevan a las personas que desaparecieron a nuestros hijos, no tenemos la mínima posibilidad que ellos puedan hablar y decirnos dónde los podemos encontrar. Entonces, se estarían llevando esa verdad que por la que nosotros tanto luchamos.
So she says that she does think that if Trump and Sheinbaum could work together, it would make a difference. But because President Sheinbaum has refused any help, she doesn't see it doing anything for Mexico. And she also fears that with that intervention and with them taking the cartels, she would lose any hope she has of answers, because the answers would die with the cartels of where the bodies are hidden and where all of the lost disappeared are.
The opinions of the guests and hosts are their own and do not represent the opinions of Ironclad, the Border Patrol, or the Department of Homeland Security.
Welcome to Borderline Narcosis, an Ironclad original, presented by First Form. Our next guest is Ceci Flores. She is a mother from Mexico who has had 2 sons disappear or kidnapped. The story you'll get to hear is heartfelt and emotional. She was brought to us by an older guest, Adriana Jones, whose family was murdered by the cartel in Mexico as well. This is a very different style. Ceci only speaks Spanish. I'm not very fluent in Spanish, and so Adriana is going to be helping us translate it. So bear with us, a very new way of kind of doing an interview with a very important topic. In recent news, there was extermination camps found in Mexico, and we talk about it today during this interview. Check it out.
Life's doing really well. Things are busy, obviously, with Trump in office. Things change daily. We've been working really hard on getting the terrorism designation. The Juarez, Cartel, and La Línea were actually left off of the list of names. Mostly just because they're not the number ones in the headline news right now. So
yeah,
working really, really hard. There's supposed to be another round of designations, but to make sure that they're on that next list, as well as retroactive like wording in the judgment for all of the different cases in Mexico, you know, understanding that the same people who murdered my sister are still the same people doing the atrocities that we're looking at today. I had actually wanted to send you guys, have you been following the case there with the camps that they found of where they were burning off?
Yeah, I have some questions today.
Okay.
I have some questions today about that.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to be informed, because that's what she's been working on presently, and that's what RhonitaVIVE has been helping her with. Interviewed one of the men that escaped, and we've had contact, you know, they've reached out to us. We're trying to help in any way we can, but it's obviously a very kind of scary situation for everybody involved. It's honestly the craziest stuff I've ever seen in my entire life.
What's been happening currently with you? As in, so just because we're waiting on Ceci anyways, I'm just curious, what has been a change since the new administration?
So, first, with Ceci, we've been busy with her because we've always worked with Madre Buscadoras for 5 years now. Our RhonitaVIVE team has taken her on as an activist, that everything from her media campaigns to when she's on call, we've really taken on that, amplified her work, I guess, is the way we look at it. On a personal level, ever since the Trump designation, so we've been doing a lot of lobbying in DC. So what they're reaching out to us and our team of lawyers that we've had on the case to kind of, okay, so they understand that they're terrorists and they know more names need to be added and they know that they need to change this law, but okay, like then now what's the next step, right? How do you go after these terrorists? Well, things like changing existing laws to where, you know, you go after it's easier to go after the money laundering, the businesses, banks that do business with terrorism, blacklisting them for travel. Just there's obviously a lot of that already exists, but designating Mexican drug cartels is new. And so do you want to just lean on existing law, or do you want to create specific law that pertains to them in this situation? And I think that's the way they're looking at it. Like, what do we need to add to existing law to be able to be more effective in this fight that really is, you know, bigger than most people can imagine?
Do you think that the designation of the cartel being considered as terrorists is a benefit? Like, will it help slow things down?
I for sure think it's not only a benefit, it is the only way forward. Mexico is so, it's honestly devastating what they have done to the country. And it is really the only way forward. The entire world needs to recognize them, designate them terrorists, the highest levels. And the evil is just worse than anything you can imagine. The numbers of disappeared coming out of Mexico are atrocious. The number of murders are atrocious. And our team at RhonitaVIVE believes that they are fudged by more than 50%. So, and they are already as bad as you look. So we have cases where we've gone in and said, you know, a list of, let's just say, the 15 most high profile cases. This is how many people were reported by reporters on the grounds doing the work, murdered. And then this is what the government is saying were dead. So in our case, there were 9 just in our family that were murdered. And that's not to say anything of all the rest of the story that we know that happened that day in Agua Prieta and along the border and the other fighting, right? It's not. And they only have 5 recorded deaths in the entire state for that day. Right now, still to this day. And so
that's crazy.
What are the real numbers? And ours isn't the only case. We went in and listed, obviously with high profile cases, it's easier to prove that they're wrong. So we went down the list of all the high profile cases, exactly the murders, the funerals, the reporters, everything, and said, this is how many we have found dead. Your numbers are off by 50%, 40% on this case. And it just, again and again, there's not even one that's accurate. So we really believe, and that says nothing for the migrants that are being, so imagine all the migrants coming through that are just disappeared, that aren't even a name in the data in Mexico. So how many of those people are just disappearing without a trace, being murdered, incinerated in these camps, you know? So we really do think that, like I said, that the numbers are off by up to 50%.
What's going on, y'all? I'm not sure if you know this, but Borderland Narcosis is sponsored by First Form. First Form is a wellness supplement company. And, you know, I've been with them for about 7 years. And I've been with them for that long because I truly believe in not just the product, but the people who own the company. They are a culture that just believes in your health. And so if you guys haven't tried it before, I would recommend you go and check out the Formula One Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Add a little bit of a ignition to that, and you'll have exactly what you need for your post-workout drink. This is something I've used for a very long time. When I'm in the best shape of my life, it's always been because I have a nice regimen of the First Form products. So if you guys are interested, go check them out at firstform.com/borderland. Okay, use our link. It is the #1 stphorm.com/borderland. And if you order over $75, you get free shipping. And if you're new to the site, you get a free app for 30 days. So go check it out. Again, thank you so much for all the support. See you soon. A question in my head is, what's the purpose of these camps? What was the purpose of those kind of death camps? Like, what?
So what's happening is, and it's not the first time you've seen this in history. This happens a lot in Africa. So forced recruitment, right? So you go in and you kidnap people. So in this particular case, the stories that are coming out of this camp are that people were told that there were like security guard jobs or things like that, good paying jobs in the Guadalajara area. And they would show up to a bus to go to get these jobs. Once they were there, they were held at gunpoint and kidnapped. you're never leaving again. And they were taken to these training camps. And at these training camps, the stories that were being told were they were held at gunpoint. If they were given a name, if they couldn't say the name 3 times in a row, boom, first round of people dead. They were, then they were forced to, it's honestly atrocious. I don't even know if you can put this on a podcast, but they were forced to quarter the bodies, like literally cut them into pieces, skin them, and they were forced to eat them as part of the dehumanization
and
to do.
Was them asking them to do the cannibalism like a form of indoctrination? Like, if we get them to do this, well, then they're going to continue to follow us. Is it just showing? It's like a psychological kind of thing.
It's for sure psychological, but I think the way that, so even the stories I had heard of Africa, when they would kidnap their like 12-year-old boys, they would have them kill their own parents, right? So it dehumanizes you, and then you're filled with so much shame, right? And now you don't even feel like you're not even who you were anymore. And so they continue to do this like psychological warfare on them to just make it easier to train them. But they're in a training camp. They're forced to run through mountains. They're imagine like the hardest military training you ever did. They're also doing that to them, but at gunpoint every step of the way. If you didn't make it to that next finish line, you were shot. If you weren't made. And so it's a full training camp. And the purpose is to train people to fill up. I mean, the cartel wars have been happening forever. They lose people daily. Well, this is how they refuel those ranks. Even in the story,
it's crazy.
It is. It's
Go ahead.
insane. Even in the story of my sister, I remember specifically a story that had come out that one of the guys that participated had confessed to somebody and said, when we saw they were all little heads, he said, little cabecitas, we saw the little heads poking out of the vehicle. So we knew they were children. I shot to miss because if I didn't shoot, they were going to shoot me. So, uppers and the lowers. And so it's really like, I think I told you this last time, Mexico's being held hostage by cartels. So the levels of big.
There was a report that, there's a missing child, a missing woman. I think she's more like 17, teenage range. And they identified her shoes in that camp. Now, I don't know if that's accurate or not, but are they recruiting women as well?
Well, they're kidnapping them for their own purposes. And I imagine that to some extent, women play a role. I mean, I imagine a minority role as, because you have a woman that shows up, she can get in places maybe a man can't, there might be a small percentage of, let's just say, women that actually work with the cartels, but for the most part, they're just being abused. They're used, they're kidnapped. Think every horror story you've ever heard. That's what's happening to the women. And it's happening to the migrants that are going through Mexico. It's happening to people from Mexico when they disappear. It's for them to basically use them and get rid of them. As far as why they burn the bodies, when you think of the collusion between the government and the cartels, and you realize that it's a pain to have a body, right? Now you have to account for this body and this person and this investigation. And so just get rid of those bodies so we don't have to deal with them, please. Just get rid of them. And that's what they're doing. They're just getting rid of the bodies because. So
do they have an estimate? Sorry, there's a small delay between yours and my audio, so I don't mean to keep cutting you off like that. I apologize. Do they have like an estimated number in that camp? How many bodies they were able to identify?
No, what happened was so the Madres Buscadoras had actually found out about this camp months ahead of time, and they'd told authorities. And when nothing happened, they got a team and, like a human rights team got in there with the Madres Buscadoras. And that's when all of the photos that came out were taken. That's when everything you've seen happened. So then the government finally did send officials in. And the only thing they did was close down the camp to the Madres Buscadoras and the people that were actually in there trying to find out what was happening. So now we fear And not only did they not do something about it when they knew, but now all of the work that the Madres Buscadoras do to actually do the forensic work, to find out who was missing, to actually give closure to families, which is what they do. Their goal is to give closure to families, is now going to be lost forever.
So you're telling me that the investigative team that went in there is now no longer allowed to be in there, and who knows what's happening with the site at the moment?
Well, the government has taken over.
Wow.
And if you know,
that's unfortunate.
Horrible. And if you know anything about any cases, oh, sorry, those just, all of the evidence just disappeared, are bad,
Man, I didn't know that. I thought there was still ongoing investigation and starting to really kind of identify how many, because if you just look at the shoes, I can't even begin to guess, but it looked over 200 pairs. It's what it looked like just from that alone. But I imagine who knows what the numbers could possibly be. But you would think that at this point, it's kind of like they're going to start, separating things, identifying different DNA and being able to kind of locate who's who. But the fear of the Mexican government being involved is the fear of some kind of corruption potential, right?
In gaslighting, the Mexican government is actually gaslighting the Madres Buscadoras right now. Well, we don't really know that that's where the shoes came from. If you go on and have your team look at some of the responses from the government on this, it would seem like impossible, like that they could actually get it in front of a camera and say those things. So I do believe that they will pretend to do their due diligence because they have to. It's gotten too much media, worldwide media press. But it will not be nearly what it needs to be, and it wouldn't be what the Madres Buscadoras could do. They will do the least amount possible and try to whitewash it as best they can because they just don't want that bad press. The Madres Buscadoras have often had to get forensic teams from other countries and for sure out of the area, because when they use local forensic teams, the evidence goes missing when they've worked on other sites. So they actually have to go look for outside help, because if not, they never get answers. So this is just ongoing.
I've heard in the past, some of the cartels using tactics like barrels of acid and things like that to destroy bodies, destroy evidence. This is the first time I've heard about a big, I'd say, camp, that is incinerating bodies. Is this common? Like, I know right now it's big on the news. It's one of the biggest topics that we have right now, like on the subject, but it sounded like this isn't the first time that this has been discovered, something similar to this.
It's not the first time. There was a camp in Chihuahua called El Willy, and so you find a lot of burned bodies and a lot of buried bodies as well in different camps. So my dad and his activism has joined Ceci Flores on some of her searches. So what it is they usually get a tip from someone escapes, somebody tells them, in one way or another. And they become such experts, they can almost tell immediately when they get to a site. It smells different, the ground changes with decomposed body, everything kind of they become sadly experts in this. And they've had many, many sites that they've worked on over the years. Many, many. And they will continue.
Ceci, first, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate your time. Please bear with us through this kind of new situation for us as well. But if you don't mind, for the audience, would you please introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background?
Dice que gracias por estar aquí, por dar de tu tiempo, lo aprecian mucho. Y si quieras, para todos los que van a estar viendo eso, introducir quién eres y pues tu trabajo y un poco de ti.
Ok, mi nombre es Ceci Flores, Ceci Patricia Flores. Tengo 2 hijos desaparecidos. Mi primer hijo desapareció el 30 de octubre del 2015 en Los Mochis, Sinaloa. Y mi segundo hijo desapareció el 4 de mayo del 2019 en Valle de Quino, Sonora, donde nació el colectivo Madre Buscadoras de Sonora.
Me vas a tener que dar las fechas otra vez porque creo que se me van. So she says, my name is Ceci Flores and I am mother to 2 disappeared boys. My first son disappeared, ¿cuándo fue?
30 de octubre del 2015,
So
mi primer hijo desapareció.
30th of October of 2015. ¿Y tu segundo hijo?
4 de mayo del 2019.
The 4th of May of 2019. And because of them, that's where Madres Buscadoras translates to mothers who search. And that's where her foundation was born.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So recently in the news, in March 2025, a suspected cartel, some kind of camp, right? We'll call it extermination camp is what we have on the media, was discovered in Jalisco, Mexico, and volunteers found cremation ovens and whatnot. What part of her organization was a big part of helping with this situation right now, and can we explain what these are used for?
Él dice que ahorita apenas en marzo encontraron, pues está en la noticia sobre los campos de exterminación. Él quiere que nos cuentas un poco más de Madres Buscadoras y qué hicieron ustedes en respectivo a eso.
Pues en Jalisco se encontró ese campo de exterminio. Las madres están ahorita aterrorizadas. En primer lugar, vamos a decir que en base a ese rancho que se localizó y que se hizo tan grande la difusión de lo que se encontró ahí, es que ahorita las madres estamos en riesgo. Nos están amenazando. Personal del cártel hizo un comunicado, ellos lo hicieron contra las madres buscadoras, y ahorita tenemos el riesgo de que ellos nos puedan hacer daño. Si lo puede ser, como dice mi escalera, es para ellos, para que ellos sepan que no somos sus enemigas, somos quien un día los vamos a buscar.
So she says that specifically because of this extermination camp that they found that has become so high profile, they are actually very real danger right now. The cartels actually sent out a brief personally against them, threatening them. I have seen that as well, and I'll send it to you so you can watch it. So their work has been somewhat paused. They are fear for their lives. Her sweater says, "No me mates." It says, "Do not kill me." They have, the Madres Buscadoras have reached out to the cartels and actually told them, "We're just looking for our dead bodies. We're not after you guys. Let us find some closure." That's, Ceci, ustedes cuando encontraron el campo, ¿cómo lo encontraron? I'm asking her how they found the camp.
El campo tenía muchísima ropa, zapatos, mochilas, muchísimas evidencias de donde hubo muchas personas reclutadas en ese lugar. Se encontraron unos crematorios que se hizo una gran difusión de eran 1,500, no estamos seguros la verdad, que sean 1,500 personas que estuvieron ahí, pero sí tenemos conocimiento porque ya platicamos con personas que estuvieron reclutadas en ese lugar y que lograron sobrevivir al adiestramiento que les dieron. Dice que son pocas personas que lograron quedar en ese lugar calcinadas porque no aguantaban el entrenamiento y les quitaban la vida. Y a otros, lamentablemente, te diré que es terrible la situación que vivieron estas personas, la verdad, porque las obligaron a comer carne humana. Mataban a las personas, las hacían pedazos, las desmembraban y se los daban a comer a esas mismas personas que estaban ahí reclutadas. Los obligaban a comer esa carne humana, y a las personas que no lograban digerir o pasar ese bocado de carne humana les quitaban la vida. Y también a ellos los hacían filetes, dicen esta persona, y los hacían que se los comían. Es terrible, la verdad.
Déjame traducir y para que no pierdo todo porque va a ser mucho. She's saying that they heard about the camps because of the very few people who were able to escape, contacted them and informed them on what was going on there. She said that they found so many clothes and so much luggage, they believe about 1,500, that there's no way to prove it, but that's what they expect. That's what their numbers are as high as. She repeated the horrors that they saw that I was explaining to you of they said each step they would just shoot. So they would have them quarter the bodies. And if you couldn't force yourself to eat it, if you couldn't gag it down, they would shoot you right there on the spot. And then now you had to do it, fillet the next body that had just gotten shot next to you, right? And that they would actually have them eat all of that meat. They had to know what they were doing as part of their dehumanization. She said it's the most atrocious things they've ever witnessed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's just insane. She said that she mentioned that the cartel is now threatening her. Is there a specific cartel that is claiming the doing of this? Because recently we've seen that the CJ&G made a video trying to say that they were not involved in this. But then I'm curious to know who's giving her threats. Is there a specific cartel giving her threats directly about this subject?
Está preguntando cuáles son los carteles que te están amenazando. En el video, ellos están reclamando que no fueron ellos. ¿Son ellos los que te están amenazando o también hay otros?
Pues mira, hemos recibido amenazas telefónicas por WhatsApp, por Facebook. Pues dicen que es el Cártel Jalisco Nueva Generación porque nosotras alteramos las cifras, los evidenciamos, les estamos ocasionando muchos problemas con las autoridades, que estamos haciendo las cosas mal, que nada más queremos protagonizar, pero dañándolos a ellos. Y pues yo les contesté en X, les dije que pues nosotras no traemos armas, no para amedrentar ni para nada, nosotros hablamos siempre con la verdad. Nosotras no fuimos quienes dijimos que había 1,500 personas, no hablamos de trata de órganos, no dijimos nada de eso, salió a la luz por otros medios, pero no por las madres. ¿Y por qué solamente está amenazando a las madres? Cuando salió en muchísimos medios nacionales e internacionales, y ahí sale claramente quién habla sobre ese tema. Entonces ellos, ¿por qué ponen su foco nada más en las madres? Tratando de intimidar, de amedrentar, y lamentablemente lo están logrando, porque ahora yo me tuve que poner mi camisa diciéndoles que no me maten. Les tuve que pedir y rogar y suplicar en las redes sociales que no nos maten, que no nos desaparezcan, que somos su oportunidad de un día volver a casa porque ellos, algún día alguien los puede desaparecer.
So she is saying that it's Cartel Nueva, or Gente Nueva, sorry, the Cartel Gente Nueva de Generación, right? That are CJ&G, sorry, that are threatening them. They've sent WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, found them on social media. They're saying that they have caused them a lot of problems, blaming them basically for all the problems that this has caused. And she's saying, well, we weren't the only organization there. We weren't the only organization reporting on it. So it is strange, says, that they've gone completely after us as the culprits that are bringing heat on them and threatening them.
Let's talk more about this. Does she have any more? So, because I want to jump to a couple other subjects in the same concept, but while we're on this subject, I just want to kind of knock it out and get it out of the way. What are some of the other things that the public needs to know about these camps? Maybe some of the stuff maybe the media is not telling, or some information that she feels is necessary for people to learn about these kind of camps, whether there's more of them out there, whether this one specifically was targeting kids, women, whatever that might be.
Él dice que, ¿qué quisieras decir tú al mundo sobre estos campos? ¿Qué es importante que tal vez no están diciendo en los medios? Si hay más campos igual que esta, si hay campos dirigidos a niños o mujeres, o están más así, estilo de entrenamiento, o nomás un poco más información sobre lo que está pasando en México sobre este tipo de campo.
Sí, sabemos, lamentablemente tenemos conocimiento por personas que lograron sobrevivir, de salir de ese lugar, y hay más campos de entrenamiento en Jalisco, que son del Cártel Jalisco Nueva Generación, que son campos de entrenamiento donde tienen mujeres, no niños. Él comenta que ellos no aceptan niños, que han ido niños a esos lugares a quererse refugiar ahí, que no los han aceptado, que ellos solamente jóvenes de 16, 17 en adelante, hasta personas mayores que algunos por su propia voluntad quieren pertenecer al Cartel Jalisco, mujeres que pues hicieron, pues como dicen, no vendían droga o algo, pues que las reclutan en ese lugar y algunas sí les quitan la vida, otras solamente las ponen a trabajar para que cumplan para que paguen la deuda que tienen con ellos, ¿no? Como ya sabes que ellos cobran por todo, entonces sí hay muchos campos no solamente en Jalisco, la verdad, yo te puedo decir que hay desaparecidos en todo el mundo, en todo el país. Tenemos desaparecidos, sabemos que hay casas de seguridad en todo el país. Yo lo que quisiera decir a las personas que no critiquen a los desaparecidos como delincuentes. No todos los desaparecidos son delincuentes, muchos están bajo la presión que se les dio, o ponle que se fueron como estos jóvenes que miraron anuncios de Facebook que solicitaban guardias de seguridad con altas cantidades. La necesidad tan grande que tienen de la economía los hace acudir a esos lugares donde los citan, donde son extraídos por el cártel y reclutados, y pues muchos que no pueden, ya no vuelven a casa. Pero yo les diría a las autoridades que si ellos de verdad hicieran un buen trabajo, el trabajo que les corresponde, no hubiera tanto desaparecido ni tanta madre tener que buscar a sus desaparecidos y arriesgar la vida, porque ahorita nos sentimos en riesgo. Yo solamente de querer salir afuera tengo miedo que llegue alguien y me quita la vida.
So she's saying that there are for sure camps all over Mexico, and there's disappeared all over Mexico. She said the camps that they actually have said that they don't take children. Even if children show up, they don't tend to recruit them. But, well, she says 16 and older, which are still underage. 16 and older is usually about the age that they accept. She said some people obviously do join up with cartels. You know, they're not always kidnapped. She said that another way that they end up in these forced recruitment camps is because they do extortion and charge quota for everything in Mexico nowadays, right? So even just all legal businesses have to pay quota. Imagine, the mafia in New York back in the days, right? You have to pay. And so the extortion that's happening is high. And if you don't pay, now you owe them, right? And so a lot of women will get caught up in that, where they have to work off their debt to some extent to these cartels. And they do put them to work to sell drugs and to do other things. She says that they are murdered at times, but not as often as men are. But you will find women murdered in these camps. What she would want to say to the world is that to not assume that everybody that disappears, the gaslighting on behalf of the Mexican government, as far as the high numbers go, they like to say, well, they're all cartel, right? They're narcos. Why are you guys, what are we supposed to do about it? And it's just simply not the truth. And so she's saying, don't assume that just because they're disappeared, that they were involved in cartel. Just because they're murdered, that they're involved in cartels. Being forced at gunpoint to go through this stuff, to do the things that they're doing. They are being kidnapped and forced to do these things. And if the government would do its job, then she wouldn't have to put her life at risk to go and find the missing people for the mothers of Mexico.
Ironclad creates premium content no matter the environment. From extreme elements to unforgiving terrain, we thrive on crafting content that captures the essence of your brand in the most challenging conditions. Bring your brand story to life, ensuring your message leaves an impact. Ready to elevate your vision? Connect with us today at ironcladagency.com.
Have things improved under the new president, Claudia Sheinbaum?
Las cosas son mejor con Sheinbaum.
Al momento no habíamos visto ningún resultado por parte de la presidenta. No, ningún resultado favorable a favor de las madres.
She hasn't seen a single promising or any better results under the current administration, President Sheinbaum, as far as she's concerned, or towards them. Even her behavior towards the Madre Buscadoras.
How about with the new designation of the cartel being terrorist organization? Does that give her hope that it should change things for the better in Mexico?
Con Trump designando como terroristas a los carteles, ¿crees que hay esperanza para México que cambian las cosas, que mejoran las cosas?
Sí hay una buena participación de la presidenta y él, creemos que sí se puede lograr algo, pero ella está negando rotundamente que entre Estados Unidos a México y que se lleve a los cárteles. Y en otra manera, nosotras no veríamos, la verdad, yo no estaría de acuerdo en mi persona, yo voy a hablar por mí ahora, porque si se llevan a las personas que desaparecieron a nuestros hijos, no tenemos la mínima posibilidad que ellos puedan hablar y decirnos dónde los podemos encontrar. Entonces, se estarían llevando esa verdad que por la que nosotros tanto luchamos.
So she says that she does think that if Trump and Sheinbaum could work together, it would make a difference. But because President Sheinbaum has refused any help, she doesn't see it doing anything for Mexico. And she also fears that with that intervention and with them taking the cartels, she would lose any hope she has of answers, because the answers would die with the cartels of where the bodies are hidden and where all of the lost disappeared are.
Let me take it back a little bit. Can you share a little bit more about your sons, when and how they were kidnapped? How many years have you been looking for them?
Si nos puedes contar un poco más de tus hijos, de cómo fue que se desaparecieron y todos esos años que los has estado buscando.
Sí, pues mira, en el 30 de octubre del 2015 que desaparece mi primer hijo, Alejandro, él se dirigía a su trabajo en Los Mochis, Sinaloa. Él tenía solamente un mes que había llegado a Los Mochis. Entonces, en un mes, no creo que mi hijo haya hecho algún daño tan grande al carro para que lo haya desaparecido. Entonces, tenemos conocimiento a la fecha que estaba en el lugar equivocado, con la persona equivocada, a la hora equivocada. Él solamente trasladaba gente de Juan José Ríos, el pueblo donde vivimos, a Los Mochis, que era donde estaba su trabajo. Alguien iba por una persona de las que él trasladaba, pero se los llevaron a todos. Entonces, ese es el primer testimonio.
So her first son he would drive people from their hometown to Las Mochis where he worked. He would, that was like their job. And she believes, and from all of her research, that somebody that he was transporting from one location to the other was actually the person that they were after, but they actually took all of them instead of just the one person. So it was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Autopsy knew that not everybody there was involved, but they took them all anyways. And that was how her first son disappeared. ¿Y el segundo? So that his name's
Mi segundo hijo
Perdón.
desapareció el 4 de mayo del 2019 en Bahía de Quino, Sonora. Marco Antonio desapareció junto con Jesús Adrián, mi hijo menor. Jesús Adrián estaba con su hermano en ese momento cuando llegó el cártel por él. Desaparecieron los dos y me dio la tarea de salir inmediatamente en su búsqueda, porque ya tenía 4 años de experiencia. Ya sabía que la autoridad no iba a mover un dedo para buscar a mi hijo, que no iban a ayudar en nada para que yo hiciera la búsqueda, y tuve que salir yo sola arriesgando mi vida porque tenía muchísimo miedo, pero sabía que tenía que arriesgar mi vida por recuperar a mis hijos, y salí corriendo inmediatamente a buscar a mis hijos y transmitiendo en mis redes sociales, implorándoles, suplicándoles a las personas que se habían llevado a mis hijos que si los habían matado, que me los entregaran, que no me los desaparecieran, porque ya tenía un desaparecido hacía 4 años y me estaba volviendo loca de dolor. Que si algo les debían y con su muerte habían pagado, que me los entregaran. A la semana tuve respuesta del cártel, me llamó y me dijeron, te los vamos a entregar y vas a acudir a este lugar a la medianoche y ahí te los vamos a entregar. Ese día 9 de mayo en la medianoche, ya fue el 10 de mayo que me los entregaron. Acudí al lugar que ellos me refirieron y solamente me entregaron a uno de mis hijos, al menor, con vida. Y a mi hijo mayor, por ser un delincuente que tenía nexos le debía a los cárteles, no trabajaba para los cárteles mi hijo. Pues como les debía a los cárteles, lo acusaron de chapulín y lo desaparecieron. Y pues sigo en esta lucha después de 6 años ahí buscando a Marco Antonio.
So she said that when her two younger sons disappeared together, when she first heard about it, she didn't waste time with authorities. She had already been looking for her other son for 4 years. She knew they weren't going to help. She knew it was pointless to go that route. She'd already been through it. So she immediately went on all of her social media, immediately started looking for them in the town. And she was on high alert like the second it happened. She actually reached out to the cartels in that social media and said, just please, if they're dead, give me their bodies. I've already lived with the heartache of having a child, of not having closure on my oldest son. If you killed them, just give me their bodies. I can't go through that again. I don't want to go through having another disappeared child. They, through social media and stuff, sent stuff to her saying if she was at this location at this time, that they would return her sons to her. And when she showed up to that location, only her younger son was there, not the older one. The older one, she said, had debt with the cartels. She said that he didn't work with the cartels, but he had debt with the cartels. And so they accused him of cheating them, and he was disappeared. But her second son was young, was still a teenager, and so they released him. And she's never heard from her.
So she's had 3, just clarification for me, she's had 3 sons kidnapped, but one of them was given back. The other 2 are still missing.
They're still missing. She doesn't know what ever happened.
Wow. With these threats that she has ongoing, what keeps her, what made her, I guess I understand it, but I'd love to hear it from her, is why did she start her organization and what keeps her driven to try and find the truth?
Con todas esas amenazas que te han dado en los años, ¿dónde encuentras tu fuerza para seguir adelante con tu causa, con Madres Buscadoras, tu fundación? ¿Cómo encuentras tu por qué?
Por esto, por el amor a mis desaparecidos, por el amor a mis hijos. Porque si no fuera por ese amor que yo siento por ellos, pues ya estuviera en mi casa llorando su ausencia. En este libro que tenemos aquí que escribimos, ya va a ser 2 años que está escrito este libro, aquí viene la historia, una parte de la historia no completa porque no terminaría con este libro, tendría que ser muchísimos libros, el que cuenta la historia, el por qué esta lucha, por qué esa necesidad. Alejandro desapareció el 30 de octubre, como te dije ahorita, es inocente, no le debía nada a autoridades ni a cárteles, pero estaba en el lugar equivocado. Y Marco Antonio, aunque es una persona que es un delincuente para la autoridad y su sociedad, pues es mi hijo también, y lo tengo que buscar porque también, igual que Alex, lo amo con la misma intensidad y los 2 son mis hijos. Esta es mi lucha. El amor por mis desaparecidos es lo que me ha hecho caminar por parte del país en su búsqueda.
She says that, she's a mom, they're her boys. Those are her 2 boys. She said she wrote her book a couple of years ago, and there's a chapter on that, on her why and how do you continue to move forward. She says Alejandro was just in the wrong place. He had never done anything wrong. He fully disappeared. Wrong place, wrong time. She said her second son, he did owe them money. He had gotten involved to the point where he owed the cartel money. But as a mother, even if your son does wrong, you still look for him, you still find closure, and you still fight for him, for to know what happened to him. And that's what a mother does. And that's where her fight comes from.
I would love to get the information on her book as well for later, if you don't mind. She mentioned earlier, but she's facing threats from the cartels and officials in her efforts, right? Is she afraid at any point that, in her search for answers for her own kids, she could quite potentially lose her own life?
Me está pidiendo que si crees que podrías perder tu vida por el trabajo que estás haciendo.
Sí, Por eso tengo mucho miedo, pero no puedo parar porque mi motor, mi lucha son mis hijos y no puedo decir que por miedo voy a abandonarlos en ese lugar donde los tienen sepultados clandestinamente. Sé que me pueden quitar la vida, pero ya me la quitaron cuando se los llevaron.
She says, yes, she fears for her life every day, but she can't stop. She can't let fear be what stops her from fighting for trying to find their bodies. Where she wants to know where they're buried. They already took her life when they took them from her. So now she wants to know. She wants to know. She wants the closure, finding their bodies.
In her opinion, what needs to happen for this to change? How does, in the words of my notes here, is essentially, what would justice look like? What does justice look like for the families who have disappeared kids moving forward in the future? What does that look like for the country of Mexico?
Pregunta que, en tu opinión, ¿qué necesita cambiar? ¿Qué necesita? ¿Qué sería justicia para todas las madres que tú conoces? Las madres buscadoras y las otras madres que han desaparecido a sus hijos. ¿Cuál sería justicia para ellos? ¿Cómo se vería eso?
Yo pienso que la justicia va a llegar cuando detengan a los delincuentes y ya no es que busquemos justicia, lo que no queremos es más repetición. Porque si detienen al líder de los cárteles, se va a ¿cómo se puede decir? Va a perder fuerza el cártel. Entonces, eso es lo que nosotros queremos, que de verdad sí trabajen y detengan a los líderes para que ya no haya más repetición. Y la otra, creo que nosotros lo hemos hecho en lo que deberían de ser el gobierno. Pues nosotros buscamos, encontramos, entregamos a las familias y seguimos la búsqueda de nuestro desaparecido que le corresponde al gobierno. Pero también quisiéramos que el gobierno hiciera lo que hacemos nosotras, pedirles a los cárteles que si los matan, no los desaparezcan. Porque si ellos con la muerte pagan la deuda, ¿por qué desaparecerlos? Eso es lo que no queremos. Que no queremos que haya más desaparecidos para que no haya más dinastías de madres buscadoras.
So she said that justice isn't as much even what they're looking for, that it's more no repetition, but let's just stop it from happening. Like that's what they're looking for this to stop happening. She said, of course, if they go after the heads of the cartels, then that takes power away from that cartel, and that's a good thing. But their fight is more no repetition to stop this from continuing. And the angle that they've really taken with the cartels is just don't make them disappear. That's why the incinerating them, don't give us at least a closure. You come in contact with them, at least leave their bodies for us to bury. Like, just don't make them disappear. That's too many mothers that are left heartbroken without any knowledge of what happened to their children. So that's always been their ask of the cartels, Madres Buscadoras, don't disappear them.
With everything she's been doing throughout all the years, does she still have hopes of finding her sons?
Con todo lo que has hecho todos estos años, ¿tienes esperanza de encontrar a los cuerpos de tus hijos?
Sí, y la esperanza es la que me mantiene seguir adelante. Sé que en algún momento Dios me va a dar esa bendición. Creo que si no los he encontrado, porque aún faltan muchos que buscar, porque las madres que encuentran a sus hijos se salen y no ni siquiera dicen gracias, ni siquiera dicen ya me voy. Entonces creo que al encontrar yo a mis hijos y me retiro, ¿quién busca a los desaparecidos? Entonces pienso que Dios por algo me tiene en este lugar, porque Él es el que me da fuerza para seguir adelante. Y yo solamente acepto su voluntad y sigo luchando por mis desaparecidos.
So she says she does. She believes that she will find their bodies. She believes that God will grant her that. And she believes that the reason He hasn't granted her that is because there's so much work to be done. She says a lot of the fight leaves a woman when she finds the bodies of her children, that she's seen that in her work. When the mothers actually find their children's bodies, they usually go home and the fight leaves them. And that God knows that she has to continue this work and continue fighting to find more bodies and to give closure to other families. And she just accepts his will, and she knows her moment will come.
It's powerful. If you could speak directly to the people who are responsible for the disappearance of these men, women, and kids in Mexico, what would you say to them?
Si tú podrías hablar personalmente con la gente responsable de todas esas desapariciones, ¿qué dirías?
Les pediría eso, que ya no los desaparezcan y que nos digan dónde los dejaron. Que ellos como humanos tienen el derecho de volver a casa, y las madres tenemos el derecho de volver a ver a nuestros hijos, aunque sean un puño de huesos. Yo sería capaz de rodillas suplicarle al cártel y me diga dónde dejaron a mis desaparecidos. Y no solamente a los míos, a los de miles de madres que están muriendo lentamente en este caminar, en esta lucha, volver a ver a sus hijos. Madres que se han ido de este mundo con los brazos vacíos. Mi súplica no solamente es por Marcos y por Alex, sino es por los miles de desaparecidos y por las miles de madres que tenemos el mismo derecho, volver a ver a nuestros hijos.
So she said that she would beg them to just please not to disappear them. What she's asked 1,000 times, don't disappear them. And to please tell them where the bodies are. That every human has the right to go home and be buried with their family. That as humans, they deserve that. And that as mothers, they deserve to bury their children, even if it's just a handful of bones. And that she will continue fighting, that she would be willing to get down on her knees to beg the cartel to tell her where her boys are, to fight for them, and not just for Alex and Marco Antonio, but for all that disappeared. That the mothers have died with their arms bare and hearts broken, not knowing what happened to their children, and that they just need that closure.
Well, I want to say thank you for her time and her vulnerability and telling us her story. And I also want to ask if there's anything we can do to help. Please tell us how we can right now and our audience, so we can continue to support her cause.
Dice que pues te quiere primero que nada agradecer por contar tu historia, por ser tan vulnerable, decir todo lo que sientes, y cómo pueden ayudar. Ellos, con la gente que está escuchando, ¿cómo pueden ayudar?
Hay muchas formas de ayudar a las madres, y más que nada mi lucha no solamente es por los desaparecidos, por las madres que tenemos el derecho a volver a ver a nuestros hijos, sino por los huérfanos del cártel, los huérfanos que quedaron con miles de preguntas y que no les podemos decir qué pasó cuando ellos me dicen, ¿cuándo va a volver su papá? ¿Por qué se fue? ¿Por qué no les habla? ¿Por qué ella no vuelve? No tenemos palabras. Yo no tengo unas palabras para decirles a mis nietos. Entonces, mi lucha es porque los huérfanos vuelvan a ver a sus padres, aunque sea que tengan el lugar donde ir a llorarles. No sabemos qué. Yo no sé qué les voy a decir a mis nietos el día que encuentre a mis hijos y que los encuentre en huesos. No sé cómo les voy a explicar el ver que su papá ya no va a volver nunca, que nunca lo van a volver a ver, que nunca lo vamos a volver a abrazar, que no vamos a tener nuevamente su presencia, pero por lo menos vamos a tener un lugar donde irle a llorar. Yo lucho porque los huérfanos tengan una mejor calidad de vida. Yo no quiero que los huérfanos tengan ese pensar de decir, cuando les preguntas, ¿qué quieres ser de grande? Y que digan, quiero ser sicario para matar a la persona que se llevó a mi papá. No. Queremos que la sociedad nos ayude para que los niños tengan un estudio, otra cultura, no tengan otros pensamientos. De verdad. Estamos haciendo la fundación para los huérfanos, hijos de desaparecidos que lamentablemente quedaron con una abuela con bajos recursos, con avanzada edad, que tiene que escoger en cuidarlos o en mantenerlos y que tienen muchas carencias. Entonces nos pueden ayudar con eso. Pueden hacer donaciones para los niños. Ya viene el Día del Niño. Hacemos una colecta el Día del Niño, la Navidad, para que los niños no pasen ese día triste. Por lo menos les hacemos un día feliz. Les hacemos piñata, pasteles, dulces, juguetes, y lo hacemos a través de nuestras redes sociales solicitando esas donaciones para que ellos tengan ese regalo en el Día del Niño. Entonces, es una manera de aportar, ayudar a los niños en la orfandad, más que las madres. Nosotros, como quiera, yo vendo producto Medicaid, tú ya me conoces, vendo ropa para salir adelante con mis búsquedas, apoyar a las madres que tienen necesidad con una despensa. Pero aquí lo que necesitamos es apoyar a esos niños para que tengan otra mentalidad y no piensen en ser delincuentes, y darles un estudio para que ellos tengan un mejor futuro. Pueden donar útiles escolares, mochilas, zapatos, ropa, cosas que los niños necesitan para que no dejen de estudiar y que mucha necesidad tienen de verdad. Entonces, mi solicitud es no para las madres, sino para los huérfanos que nos ha dejado el narco, de verdad.
¿Cómo se llama otra vez la fundación Hijos de los Desaparecidos?
Sí, la fundación se llama Lili López Apoyo en Orfandades, porque una madre falleció. Estábamos haciendo la fundación y ella falleció en la lucha. Tuvo un infarto y murió. Entonces le queremos poner a la fundación Lili López en apoyo a la orfandad.
So Lili Lopez, she's a mother that, wife of one of the many disappeared, a Madre Buscadora, you know. And so she said that they have started a foundation of Niños de los Desaparecidos, so the children of the disappeared, but they're naming it after Lili Lopez. And so there's so many, when you come in contact with the mothers that are searching, there are usually little orphans left behind from these disappeared peoples that have no closure, you know, don't know what happened to their dad or their brother. And how do you stop those little kids thinking that they're just going to grow up to be a hitman so that they can go after the people who killed their dad or killed their brother? And so they really are working on how to give better quality of life to these children. She said that they'll do, you know, on Children's Day in Mexico, it's in April, or on Christmas, that they'll do like, kind of like a money, donation days, you know, where they can try to get a big haul for these children. But she also said donations of everything from backpacks to shoes, anything to help with their quality of life that will convince them to continue studying, to choose a different path, to choose hopefully a lifestyle that will keep them away from the cartels. She said that's what they're working on, that the mothers find a way, that it's the children that they usually do fundraising for.
Well, anything we can do to help, we will. If you just don't mind sending us some of those links, we'll put them on our channel so people can find those. I really appreciate your time and your vulnerability. And again, just telling your story. I know it's not easy, but we hope that this platform brings more eyes to your story, and hopefully that helps in some way. Thank you again.
Dice, gracias otra vez, Ceci, por estar aquí, por contar tu historia, por ser tan vulnerable con todo el mundo, y que por seguro mandar todos los links que lo van a poner en todos lados. También tu libro, para que pues el mundo pueda saber lo que está pasando y un poco más sobre ti y este trabajo que estás haciendo, que es tan importante.
Sí, muchísimas gracias. Pues nosotras, es un sufrimiento terrible, es un luto permanente, porque no sabemos cuándo va a ser que de verdad podamos recuperar a nuestros hijos. Mentir constantemente a nuestros nietos, al tener que estarles mintiendo, también es doloroso, porque la mentira no es buena, porque va a llegar el momento que yo tenga que encontrar a mi hijo y le tenga que decir a mis nietos, porque cuando me preguntan dónde está, yo les digo que está trabajando en Estados Unidos, pero ellos ya no pueden creer esa historia porque ya pasaron 6 años y saben que su papá los amaba tanto. Mi hijo, si hizo cosas ilícitas, era para ayudar a sus hijos y para darles una mejor calidad de vida. Ellos saben que cuando su papá estaba, ellos no carecían de nada. Lo que ellos necesitaban, Su papá siempre estaba ahí para solventar eso. Ellos entienden ahora la situación que viven con una abuela que se dedicó a buscar a sus hijos, que no trabaja y no les puede dar lo que su papá les daba. Ellos se dan cuenta que no es verdad, que su papá está en Estados Unidos porque no les manda dinero suficiente para que su mamá no trabaje y les pueda dar más atención. Entonces, imagínate, para mí qué doloroso estarles mintiendo cuando yo siempre estoy diciendo que la mentira no es buena, porque cuando la verdad llegue, entonces vamos a quedar mal nosotros. Entonces, ¿qué les voy a decir cuando encuentre a su papá muerto? Si es que lo llego a encontrar. ¿Qué les voy a decir? Que eso es lo que encontré de su papá en esta lucha, en esta búsqueda. Ellos ya están grandes y miran redes sociales. A mí me da miedo que ellos vean en las redes sociales donde ponen a su papá con armas y me ponen a mí a un lado de él y diciendo, bueno, abuela, ¿tú sabías que mi papá era un delincuente? Y nos mentiste. Mi nieto tiene 15 años, la niña tiene 12 años y la otra niña también. Entonces, ¿qué les digo? ¿Qué les digo ante esta realidad que vivimos? El tener que mentir para no dañar, pero vamos a dañar más cuando llegue la verdad. Entonces es bien terrible la situación de las madres, el tener que estar haciendo esto, la verdad, y dividir tu vida, porque yo tengo que dividir mi vida en buscar a mis desaparecidos, en ver a mis nietos, en ver la manera como solventar un poquito lo que ellos necesitan, porque la prepa, la secundaria, la primaria, pues todo cuesta. Y aunque mi nuera trabaja para que no le falten nada a sus hijos, no es suficiente, porque ellos estaban impuestos a que el papá tenía todo para ellos siempre. Pero ahora ya no está papá y no está en Estados Unidos porque no les mandan dinero. Ellos piensan que él está con otra mujer, que la otra mujer no quiere que les hable, pues eso no les habla y están haciendo un mal concepto del papá y eso es lo que a mí me duele. Cuando ellos me dicen, es que mi papá ya no nos quiere, abuela, porque ni nos habla. Y le digo, es que está en un lugar que no puede hablar, pero ellos ya no me creen. Y es terrible, de verdad.
So she's saying that the struggle is real when you think of it's a permanent, it's called a luto, loss, right? You never can mourn the loss and move on from it because you're in this limbo space. And even with the children, do you tell them, well, their fathers are disappeared. They're not dead yet. And you don't actually know where they're at. And you don't know. So to say your father's dead, let's mourn him isn't correct. So you end up having to lie and to these children and to constantly make up a new way. Or maybe they're working in the States. Well, then why don't they call us? Why don't they send us money if my dad's still alive? And she says that the mothers are in this constant flux in this horrible situation of trying to make it make sense to the children. But at the same time, you can't mourn them because you don't actually know. But then the day's going to come when you hopefully do get to mourn them. And what is she going to say to her grandchildren then? And she says in her work, so she has one son who was completely innocent and the other son who was, to whatever extent possibly involved because they obviously had things. So she has to find a way to explain this to these grandchildren of hers to make this all make sense. And, but with no closure and no actual truth because she doesn't even know what the truth is. And it's an impossible situation for the mothers to be in.
No, I absolutely agree. I really appreciate bringing this story to light on our show. And Adriana, thank you so much for helping us with the translation of everything.
Thank you. I'm sure I missed things. I did the best I could. So, but thank you so much.
It's okay. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Gracias, Ceci, por todo. Apreciamos mucho. Thank you, Vince.
No problem. Thank
Con
you.
muchísimo la atención que pongan sus ojos en nosotras las madres, que de verdad necesitamos que el mundo sepa la necesidad que tenemos de volver a ver a nuestros hijos, aunque sean unos delincuentes.
Thank you.
Gracias. She said thank you. Thank you so much, Vince.
Thank you for listening to Borderland Narcosis, an Ironclad original, presented by First Form. Don't forget to check out our new Instagram at Borderland Podcast on Instagram, where you can find new information on the podcast, but also the news on the cartels, drugs, and other things. Go check it out.
For For the past 15 years, we've been known as the turnkey branded content company, right? That means that we take brand and content to the next level. So if you're Garmin and you want us to shoot your new watch at the side of a cliff in the middle of Colorado, we source the location, we get the permits, we find the talent, we get the side-by-sides. We make everything happen for a world-class piece of branded content. And that's really where we've kind of cut our teeth. And about 5 years ago, we launched Ironclad Originals as the second part of Ironclad. So you've got the branded content on one side, and you've got Ironclad Originals. And what Ironclad Originals is, intellectual properties by way of franchises that can start as a podcast, build an audience, and develop into a film or series that can be licensed or purchased by a major streaming platform. So to date, we've launched 8 Ironclad Originals. Every one of them has topped the charts on Spotify and Apple and have grown to today over 5 million downloads a month. We're doing partnerships with Warner Brothers, major sporting networks, and many, many other brands to bring their product to our audience by way of our podcast. Now, you may have seen some of our podcasts with Andy Stumpf, Vincent Vargas, Dom Rosso. We're launching 4 more this year. So these Ironclad Originals are going to continue to evolve, continue to grow, and by the end of this year, our target is to have 10 million unique audience members on the Ironclad Original platform. Now, these two sides of Ironclad are really yin and yang to one another, and you can come in on either side of that. One note is, the branded content and the original content has come together for one more unique offering called a brand podcast. We've taken all of our expertise on the Ironclad Original side, mixed with the service-based business of the branded content, and now we're providing branded podcasts. That's a turnkey podcast that we can launch from 0 to full scale within 60 days. And we'll do 52 weeks of unique content where we build the studio, build the brand, book the guest, edit the shows, host the shows, engineer the shows, take everything that makes an Ironclad Original unique, apply it to a brand, and build owned content for our brand partners that can take a brand to a whole nother level. You know, as we close this out, I just want you to think, this is something that you should be doing, whether it's with or without Ironclad. We truly believe that you should be creating brand podcasts. We truly believe you need the best branded content in the world. We truly believe you need a partner that can tell your story at an elite level. Okay, so this is something that you need to be doing with or without Ironclad. But one thing about Ironclad is that we are drinking our own Kool-Aid. We believe in this so much, we're investing in originals. We are testing the waters. We have the connections happening on this side of the house. We're proven and tested on the brand side. And we promise that if you come to us, we will bring all those resources together and bring them to you. And we will be an extension to your team to make you operate at an elite level. So those are the things that we're offering here at Ironclad. We're so excited. Thank you so much for all your support. We love you all.